Hello! I'm late. I'm so
His fault.
late.
All his fault.
Welcome to VO Journey Academy live with Anthony. That's late. And who am I with today?
Gabby, always. You're
Gabby, of
always with me.
course.
I'm your work wife, damn it.
Well, if you well, Gabby hasn't left me, so that's good. I literally was working with a voice actor. We were working on some stuff for Academy Voices, and I look
Mm,
up and it's literally 10 minutes past when we were supposed to start. I can't
lost track
believe
of
I
time.
did. That's
It happens.
so wild.
It
So
happens.
I apologize for that mess. Anywho, so if you do come along and you are here with us today, welcome. Thank
I'm
you for
sorry.
being a trooper and dealing with me. We have I think we have a great topic today. We've been talking about over the last week and a variety of things. We were talking yesterday about a bunch of things, but we kind of got into what time scheduling, stuff like that. How do I get more done, or get or learning new skills. We were talking about learning new skill yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But today we had our topic was we were going to talk about today. What was that?
We were going to talk a little bit about breath control because that seemed to be one of those things that was hard for a lot of people. You even said something about it to adapt to. Yeah.
Yeah, so breath control. Where do we even begin, Gabby? Where do we begin with breath control?
So many things. I
Hmm.
mean, so let's start with the biology. All
Yes.
right. So one of the things I always find really funny is that and we can all do this. We can do this like in Moss over the live. Like go ahead and take a deep breath. And you just did it. So what most people do is they raise their shoulders.
Hmm.
They do this, right?
Yes.
In an attempt to kind of expand. Yeah. And so most people you tell them to take a deep breath and they go, but notice that when you raise your shoulders, there's a stop point, right? You go, and it's like you get stuck, like there's
Hmm.
nowhere else for the air to go. That's because technically that's not a deep breath. So, the way doctors explain this, I am not one, but yes, I have studied this sadly extensively, is that there is an inner tube around your midsection, like a
Hmm.
tire, right? And really, when you take a deep breath, you want to keep your shoulders relaxed, but keep filling down into the belly, down into the abdomen, and you will feel that inner tube inflate. And ironically, a good solid deep breath you should actually be able to feel in your back at your
Mm.
kidneys. Yes, because your kidneys
Mm.
are super close to where that inner tube is. And so when you think about Michael Phelps, like
Hmm.
professional, athletes, swimmers, they talk about this. That is how they train themselves to be able to hold their breath for so long because they're expanding that inner tube's capacity and ability. So it first starts with really practicing true deep breathing exercises, learning how to hold and expel air very slowly, you know, and then
Mm.
continue on. A lot of people learn this in chorus. If you
Mm.
have ever taken singing lessons or right, you've worked with a choral director, this is a big part of that. It's all in the breathing because that's what allows singers to do what they do as well. So
Mm.
those are my go-tos in that respect. I think that first we learn the biology, then we learn how to apply it in the booth. And by the way, one of the things about that inner tube is that's why standing is so important, because when we're sitting we're compressing it. So yeah.
No, I love that. That's really. I mean, I I think as we've got that part where it's the biological part, it's the part where we're working. And
Mm-hmm.
then, kind of this week too, for me, I was focusing on the mental side of things as well,
Mm.
right? Because I think there's a mental part to
Yeah.
this now also. And that mental part comes in for a lot of things. One, you being nervous.
Yes.
I mean, we get nervous when we have to do these things because
Yeah.
we don't want to screw up. And the nerves can come across and make us not comfortable. So make us on edge, make us more intense. So going what Gabby said, I would imagine part of that too, like you said at the end, is being relaxed. When you're nervous and when you're tensed up, you're going to end up taking more breaths,
Shallower breaths.
so you have to take more, and they typically are loud. I can always tell when someone, it's kind of a tell. So if everybody listening, if you can think about yourself and when you're narrating, and if this ever happens to you, you're narrating, like you
Gulping.
can hear, you know what I mean, where you have people they're talking here, like this quick, like extensive, really like violent grasp of air. And if you've ever done this, right, I mean, it's very I mean, you can hear it, especially voiceovers. It's really off-putting.
It is. And I mean, I think, speed plays a big part in this too, because the faster we go, the more air we use up. And that's but it's one of those two things. If you're gulping, then either you're going too fast or your nerves are in play. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that part of this is also, getting into now the practice part. Because we've talked a lot. Yeah, but you've talked about with commercials. We've talked about on the channel too about the current trend. Speaking more quickly when we're doing more realistic type of voiceovers, because that's what's expected of us now. So you might, in reality, you might not be a person who talks fast.
Yeah.
Which means that, part of everything we do, and I guess what I was trying to get at yesterday, was we do need to be able to learn new skills, but you got to practice them.
Yeah.
And you might need to practice that. One thing that I tried very hard for a period of time was taking quiet breaths. Do you know what I mean? So, because one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest time, suckers, if you will, from us is having to go through our audio and get rid of breaths. All right. And so could you, and we're like, well, people are always like, well, you leave your breath in, it's natural. Yes, breathing is very natural.
It depends on the application.
Breathing. That's not natural.
It depends on the application. I think, you made a really great point. We were talking about this and you made a great point. You were like, it depends on whether or not the breath disrupts the flow and disrupts, the disbelief that, pulls the audience out of that state.
Your suspension of disbelief.
A suspension of disbelief. Exactly. So if it pulls them away, then that breath's got to go. But, if it's short things where it's an occasional, then it's fine. But definitely, I think for audiobooks, especially because of the intimacy of the listening,
yes,
it is a lot different. Narrating in general, it's a lot different. But, you made a good point when you said maybe you're just not a fast talker. Well, stylistically, some actors are just not fast.
That's right.
That's part of their charm. It's part of their brand. It's part of who they are. I have long joked, I would love to be a fly on the wall just to hear somebody look at our beloved Morgan Freeman and say, Mr. Freeman, could you go a little faster? I would love it, because his facial expression and his reaction must be priceless. If and when that happens, no, because you hired Morgan Freeman. And if you want Morgan Freeman, this is the pace.
Yeah. I love it. And so with that being said, I do think that getting practice in, especially with copy as well, that's going to give you a chance. And here's another thing too. So like in Voice Acting 101 right now, we're doing some dialogue work. We've got partners 2 to 3 partners in a group, and they have
Mm,
scripts, and they're practicing them, and they come back and they perform them. And the idea, is to bring more different types of acting so that you get an opportunity to try different things in order to see how you react and how
yeah.
your body reacts and how your breath reacts, and all of these things play a part. So that, as I say, if you are someone who is like, I do this one thing,
Hmm.
that's great, work on it, but don't be afraid to practice with a variety of different other things. And what's interesting is you might find out some more. You'll find out more about yourself.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know
Oh,
like,
for
what's
sure.
really interesting is when I do, there's certain characters I do that I just gravitate towards, that I seem to have no issues speaking at all. Right? And
Mm,
then there's other, we could have a whole session on this, or talk more about, why is it that sometimes with a certain character or an accent, even if we're not
mhm,
good with it,
mhm.
it seems to just gel. Like, we seem to talk so much easier, or we seem to be more confident in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of theories about that, but I don't know if you do. Um,
Well, and along the lines of some of what you were just saying with going back to breath control, I think knowing where you take your air is really important. Like, for instance, I know if I'm in a commercial session and it's shorter, and again, speed and timing are of the essence. Promo, that's another one where I use this a lot. I tend to breathe more out of my mouth, right? I
mm,
tend to inhale, exhale from the oral cavity versus if it's long, if it's a narrative, it's more nose based because I want it to be subtler, right? Because I want it to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more natural. Now, sometimes we run the risk that, it makes sound differently, right? Or that we have more mouth noise or more of a nose whistle kind of thing. So you have to sort of experiment.
mm,
You have to really know yourself for this. A lot of voice actors breathe through the mouth almost exclusively because, in doing so, we can really control mouth noise. And by not ever fully closing our mouth when we stop. But
right.
the other end of that is that the breath becomes more audible.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, on that note, there's a logistical, not logistical, but there's a note to be made, for, and this happens when I work with voice actors. I know this happened to you as well, as performers in general and musicians. There are phrases, there are ideas
Mm,
that should not have a pause, whether it's in a lot in between it. And a lot of times those pauses are not intentional, but they're caused by us taking a breath.
yeah. Mm,
And then it breaks the idea. The idea becomes,
fragmented.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I think that, I know I've told the story before, but I remember doing some pieces, where from the 18th to 19th century on finances, and they literally were like 6 to 7 sentences that were made in one sentence.
Hui.
And you know what I mean? And how they used to write, and it was all an idea.
Mm,
So, like, one idea. So, I mean, literally, I would do that. I mean, I would have to go, right? Because
yeah.
taking a breath in these made literally no sense the way it
Oof.
was written.
Oof.
And it was, and but it helped me also. You'll just get better at this, like stringing out longer phrases without you knowing the capacity that you have,
Mm,
being able to take bigger breaths, not violently, but being able to speak longer, and also manipulating the sound so it doesn't sound like you're running out of breath. How many people
right.
have been like, I'm trying to get to the end? Right? So don't take
We've
a
all been there. We have
right?
all been there. We've all had a moment where we're like,
Right, exactly,
I have
exactly.
nothing
I know
left.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't stop.
Yep.
Um, you
But
know,
also,
yeah.
I know for me, that's where diaphragmatic breathing is so important because the lower in my diaphragm I'm taking that air, the more powerful it is and the more I can extend it without it being an audible component of the track. Yeah.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I think with that being said, if you are a person who is trying to work on your breath control, I think we've identified today either getting somewhere you can do this on your own, right?
Mhm.
But we're practicing those breathing exercises. What are some breathing exercises that you got, Gabby?
I mean, again, I don't have any that are really super complicated. I mean, singing, like I said, is really good. Singing drills. Um, the diaphragmatic breathing is practiced really well on the floor because you can feel that again inner tube in the back more easily. So a lot of people start it on the ground because it's easier to feel the pressure build up in the back, and then they can
Mhm.
kind of bring that forward when they're standing or sitting. Um, I like a lot of the Meisner techniques because it's so breath oriented, and those are fun, acting techniques that are really all about breathing and all about how the actor interprets the breath in any given scene or moment. Yeah.
Mm. I love that. I'm also a big advocate for building in breath control into tongue twisters and
Mm,
oasis. I believe a lot in that because I also believe a lot of our problems with breaths also stem with our challenges with reading, saying specific words, right?
sure.
Our brain, and I don't presume to understand why it does this, but I feel like a lot of times I struggled breathing early on with breath control because I struggled reading ahead and I didn't know when the sentence would
Mm, yep.
I mean, just like elementary stuff, I could not. So my brain would force me to take a breath, or I thought I had to take a breath because I didn't
Mm.
know how long this was going to go on. And you know what I mean? So like, I mean, and this is, either I'm incredibly dumb here, or I'm on to something. But I
Yeah.
really think that I was able to do a lot of changes when I was forced myself to read ahead more and catch up.
Mhm.
I've always been a slow reader in my life, because I just didn't read a lot when I was little. I was very antsy. I wanted to go out and play. I wanted to move around. I was just always like I couldn't focus on the reading.
Mm,
And I got older, it bothered me. So, because I wanted to read and
mm,
learn when I got older.
yep.
And so what happened was is that my eyes or my brain wanted to move faster than I could comprehend the words.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until voiceover and doing this, then me forcing myself by, and it was extremely uncomfortable to do this early on, was to read while I was talking and reading the lines, was to force myself to read as far ahead as I could while I was speaking.
Mhm.
And then, in order to find out what was next, basically, or
Yeah.
see what was going on, and it helped so much. It was extremely uncomfortable, but it literally changed my entire way of being able to read. And I recommend it for everybody when you have a passage or whatever you're reading. If you can read ahead, now again, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but if you can force yourself
Mhm.
to read ahead and still narrate what you're saying, you know that you're visually, you're not seeing as far ahead as you can. Right? And again,
Yeah.
that's not meaning you have to read faster, like
No.
read like physically, I mean, like say it physically faster. It just means that and they like speed reading is fascinating to me. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know if you've ever studied speed reading,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But speed reading is fascinating to me how they look at an entire page and their eyes, how they move over the page. It's not how we typically read.
Mm-mm.
There's like the S shape kind of view. There's like, you're taking in phrases, you're
Yeah.
taking in chunks of material, not just one word at a time.
Yep.
So that I find that that's helped me a great deal also with my performance, because now
Mm.
I can act and make acting decisions without having to practice for hours on a piece.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes too, I had to train myself to take a breath sometimes even if I didn't need it, just
Mhm.
preemptively, um, to not run into the big long ramblers that would, interrupt the flow later on. Chris mentioned, of course, our lovely Nettie Rose, who did a webinar with you not that long ago.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Yeah, Nettie is a part of the VOJ community. She is a vocal coach. And so, yes, as a singer and a vocal coach, she does a tremendous amount with breath control along with vocal health. And again, that's where singers are so valuable to this process, and also so good at it. Man.
No, absolutely. Well, listen, you guys, thank you so much for watching us today. I apologize again for being so late.
We'll forgive
you guys stuck it out, and you still came, and we really appreciate that. So
we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Open Forum Friday.
Open Forum Friday. See you then, everybody. Bye. Goodbye.